So we got a lot to talk about as Elon Musk is promising the moon along with a lot of other companies. I want to show you guys what's going on today. Civilization on the moon. That's from Elon. And he's got one of his bot fluffer accounts, Doge Norway. Moon 2042. I guess we're going to have Cybertrucks and his Optimus robots and a bunch of kids playing on the moon. That's the promise today. What happened to Mars, Elon? Elon says yes. Another fluffer account. Mark says, Elon Musk just announced a major strategic pivot for SpaceX. The company is officially shifting its primary focus to building a, quote, self-growing city. All right, self-growing city on the moon is the plan. Elon then says SpaceX will build a system that allows anyone to travel to the moon. Okay. This will so insanely cool. Rocket ship, starry eyes. And Mars too. Tesla Economics says, how much will it cost me to go? As if anyone's really going to be able to afford to go to the moon, let alone Elon. Let alone anyone is ever going to go to the moon with Elon. But he does say, life cannot be about one sad thing after another. There must also be things that make us super excited and inspired about the future. This is one of things, big time. And basically, he's like showing you guys this is a cult, right? I'm just trying to cheer everyone up. I know your life sucks, right? I know things are bad. But hey, we're going to go to the moon, guys. Anyone can go. Anyone can go, right? Life can't just be about sad things. And honestly, the reason why I'm showing you this stuff is because this is why life is sad. Because people like Elon Musk, the oligarchs, if you want to call it that, or the top 1%, whatever, they create a system that all the breaks and the benefits go to them and everyone else is left with nothing. And basically we're just sold a bunch of hopes and dreams, right? Look at his fluffer accounts. It will be so epic to see another, right, fluffer type thing. Periodic reminder that building factories and cities in space will be based as hell. You got parts fabrication, assembly, chemical processing, parts fabrication, assembly, right? And I guess we got a bunch of solar there and such. That's our rendering of our city building in a crater. This will be so awesome. Starry eyes again. Another fluffer type account. SpaceX is now shifting their priorities into building a moon base, doing so in less than a decade. This proposal from the ISU involves converting a Starship into a lunar base, Skylab style. So I guess the idea is we're going to fly one of his ships up there who supposedly is going to transform into a moon base. Is that our plan? Okay. Elon's answering his critics because, you know, he's getting a lot, which any reasonable person would criticize this ridiculous plan. But Peter says a lot of SpaceX critics jumping for joy right now, incorrectly claiming that pushing Mars back by a synodic cycle or two is abandoning it, proving that it was a, quote, scam. This is nonsense, of course. What is going to happen is a massive ramp of a Starship cadence for the moon. Oh. And Elon says, as I said in my post, we will still do Mars in parallel, but the critical path to a self-growing moon city is faster. The moon city can be made to be self-growing in less than half the time of Mars. Wow. The critical juncture for humanity's expansion beyond Earth is having a self-growing civilization off-world before the resupply ships stop coming. Farzad, one of the pumpers, right, for Tesla, he says, I love how SpaceX aimed for Mars 20 years ago and now has delayed it by 5 to 7 years because AI satellites are more achievable in the near term. What an absolute insane timeline we're living in, you guys. The future is going to be ridiculous. Elon then goes on, the priority shift is because I'm worried that a natural or man-made catastrophe stops the resupply ships coming from Earth, causing the colony to die out. We can make the moon city self-growing in less than 10 years, really. But Mars will take 20 plus years due to 26. Like this is so stupid. I mean, if you already knew this stuff ahead of time, why are you now switching to the moon? And I doubt any of this stuff's going to work anyway, but it's just some stupid. This is what matters most. There's also an AI bonus element. Oh, wow. But the prime directive must ensure the long-term survival of consciousness. Okay, so while Elon's pulling that crap, basically your buying off the government for favors, looking for government contracts, selling everyone this moon hype that I guess we're all going to go to the moon. U.S. Labor Board gives up oversight of SpaceX in victory for Musk. And so what it was is there were some workers, I think it was SpaceX, and they were just saying, yo, we don't like what you're doing. Get back to work at SpaceX or whatever, right? So there was a complaint. It says 2 years after issuing a complaint accusing the aerospace firm of firing 8 engineers, right? So they fired people who signed on to this open letter criticizing Musk. In the letter, the attorneys of the former employees, the Labor Board, cited a recent opinion issued in a separate agency. Here's the quote here. According to the National Labor Board Relations Board, lacks jurisdiction. That's what we're saying. Lacks jurisdiction over the employer, and therefore I am dismissing your charge because you don't have jurisdiction is what they say. Here's a response from one of the engineers that was fired by Musk. The legal system doesn't feel like it's working like it's supposed to, and it doesn't feel like it's protecting workers the way it's supposed to. I think that is a sign of worse things to come in declining the NLRB, right? So what's happening is, again, Musk is selling you hopes and dreams, buying off the government, looking for contracts, and then if you call him out on any of this stuff, you're out of luck, I guess. And this is an era that we're in right now, and I think this is really important, putting it all together. You have companies like Google also selling you this AI hopes and dreams, and evidently they're doing 100-year bonds. This does not happen very often at all. 100 years. Like, how do I even know Google's going to be around for 100 years? Alphabet lines up 100-year sterling bond sale. 100 years. They're calling these like century bonds is what it is. I'll read a little bit of this. Alphabet has lined up banks to sell a rare 100-year bond, stepping up the borrowing spree by big tech companies racing to fund vast investments in artificial intelligence this year. It's a race for funding. So I guess 20 billion bonds on Monday. Then it's up from 15 billion before. Century bonds is what they're calling this thing. Highly unusual. It's just not done that often. I think the last time they were mentioning was like there was University of Oxford did one, EDF, Wellcome Trust. That was back in 2018. Then you had IBM did one, 100-year bond in 1996. It's just not that often. And then we're talking about, the whole tech industry wants to spend like $700 billion in AI infrastructure. It's just, the whole thing's crazy, right? Alphabet embarks on global bond spree to fund record spending. This is a quote here. Clearly, we're not in a typical CapEx cycle, like how much money we spend on this stuff, right? And after previously being net savers, the companies involved are now going deep into the well for financing to secure the resources to compete. This is a major transition and a critical one when thinking about potential risk and return to corporate bonds in the USA. And this shows you the ramp up in spending. You can see hyperscale spending soars as firms double down on AI. Morgan Stanley expects hyperscalers to borrow, right? This is all finance, borrow $400 billion this year, up from $165 billion in 2025. Wow, that's like really an increase, more than double from last year then. The offering spree will likely drive high-grade debt issuance to a record $2.25 trillion this year. This stuff is unsustainable, guys. And you got an interesting warning coming from China, basically saying, guys, don't buy U.S. treasuries. I think they're trying to diversify away from the USA is long story short. That's coming from Bloomberg today. China urges banks to curb exposure to U.S. treasuries. And I know there's a lot going on and people overlook this stuff. But don't ignore the money stuff, guys. And I get it. On YouTube, you're going to hear how awesome AI is, etc. And listen to one of the AI fluffers, how he talks about it.
Not only will deliver massive change to the world, both good and bad, but it'll also make those same people very rich beyond anyone's imagination. Why does this happen? Because AI amplifies capital. If you have the money, you can use AI to make more money. A founder with a small team and good AI tools can now compete with a company that would have needed 200 employees 5 years ago. The productivity gains go to whoever deploys the tools, and that's usually whoever has the capital to deploy them. The early adopters are going to develop expertise advantages that compound further. The person who's been orchestrating the AI agents for 2 years has skills and intuitions that someone just starting out doesn't have. The knowledge gap widens as AI capabilities expand. And in case you're not familiar, AI agents are basically digital workers that use AI to make decisions and operate a computer. Literally think of it as a human brain inside a computer that can do whatever you can do, but it can do as well in the computer. Write documents, buy things, book travel tickets, code, edit videos. But instead of a human doing those keystrokes, it's an AI-powered program that does that instead. And these things are insanely smart. You want to hear a secret? The entire researching, framing, and writing of this script was done using a swarm of AI agents in my computer. What do you think about that? Just look at the data here about AI agents and how they're going to take over everything.
And that right there is what you're going to see a ton of crap on YouTube, right? Basically, AI scripts, people that sound really, really weird, like Farzad, right? He has all these weird cuts in there. And then he's like, yo, I'm going to tell you a secret. I use AI to write all my stuff. Of course you do, right? You're a moron. And these are the kind of people that hype up Elon. And it's like, this is also coming out of Bloomberg today. AI helps scam centers evade crackdown in Asia, dupe more victims. This has actually been big news in Korea. There's a bunch of scam centers. So basically, kind of people like Farzad, that's the best way to put it. They call and they try to scam people with all sorts of hopes and dreams or whatever. And then suddenly you need a bunch of money. You get how these things work. This is actually an interesting quote from Cybercrime Directorate at Interpol, what AI is going to be used for. They say, you can see efficiency with AI being utilized in scam centers. It's pretty easy, that is. It's pretty easy business model. And I think it's going to get even easier for criminals with AI. Among other things, AI helps with voice cloning and with using voice tools to create quick and realistic images for profiles, right? So you can just make fake people up. You can do all kinds of stuff with this stuff. It's just the rise of scams. That's how I see this going on right now. Here's more. Let's say we were before looking at these ads and would see red flags, right? Like some sort of ad online. Oh, I should click that. And, it's a scam, whatever. Mistakes that would tell you it's okay. And it could be those scammy emails you get, from your long lost uncle or whatever. And you got to claim it and you get a bunch of money, right? Mistakes would tell you, okay, maybe this is not a very realistic ad. Now, within seconds, you can actually generate a very realistic looking ad just using the right prompts. What we do know is that the use of AI now, whether by the organized groups themselves, by potential traffic victims, or by the people being scammed, is likely reshaping the phenomenon. AI is going to lead us into uncharted territory. I think there's all this ball wax. So, I get it. As far as I can tell, you're all going to be rich and, trust in Lord Elon. And then that's why I show you like it's all built on lies. Elon's like, oh, guys, forget about Mars. I know I've been promising you Mars for years, but now we're going to go to the moon and anyone can go, right? It's going to be so awesome. I don't know. I mean, this is, I'm just going through the business news. This is what's happening today. Insurance broker stocks sink as AI app sparks disruption fears. I do think this is actually a pretty real thing to where probably insurance companies, and they already do it already in the sense where basically robots decide whether or not you get covered or not. And they're going to be looking for ways to deny you even faster. That's basically what it ends up being. And, when Elon Musk or these, AI fluffers tell you that the world's going to be great and we're all going to be rich, I think it's just going to be the opposite. I think it should be obvious. If you watch any sort of sci-fi movie warning about the future, this is why you study these kind of things. It's not just, sci-fi stuff. It's like the concept of not buying into the hype all of the time and just deeply thinking about these things, right? The best writers out there, I'm talking about writing right now, and is thinking about, okay, what the world is today and what could it be tomorrow in realistic ways. And sort of these kind of stories we hang on to is like, okay, I can see that. So I'll give you examples. The one that stuck in my head recently was the most recent Alien movie, and the basic opening scenes were actually pretty interesting. The workers are supposed to fulfill their contract or whatever, and if they fulfill their contract, then they get their credits or whatever, and they can go on to something else. And basically every day you have to go talk to the terminal, which is the AI boss, and the AI boss decides, you haven't fulfilled your contract, or we're writing a new contract for you. And that sort of like faceless, humanless interaction, I think unfortunately that's sort of where the direction that this world is going, and they just treat you like numbers. I think you guys already know this stuff, but this is sort of why you want regulation. I'll give you another example. This is like the FDA here, and they can choose to regulate or not regulate, right? I believe in regulation, for example, to protect consumers. FDA says Nova Nordisk TV ad for obesity pill includes false or misleading claims, you know? And you could argue the stuff like all the stuff with, say, Elon, you know, you're getting all these government contracts that you're putting like all these false and misleading claims nonstop about your products. I mean, this should be obvious that you don't want to do business with these kind of people. Now, whether or not, you know, Novo Nordisk, you know, is guilty of all this kind of stuff. Hey, due process, they got a chance to defend themselves, but you certainly do want to call companies out on this kind of stuff. Here in Korea, we have a really crazy issue that's been in the news lately. This is coming from Bloomberg. Korea probes crypto exchange over 40 billion in quote, ghost Bitcoin. And there was some weird, bizarre thing where like they were claiming they had a whole bunch of Bitcoin and they didn't. It says South Korea is investigating how cryptocurrency exchange Thumb, I guess we're calling this thing, initiated an exchange of 40 billion in Bitcoin that it apparently didn't have. Like, how is that even possible? But that's why you want to regulate this stuff. That's why this particular news, I know it's not fun to talk about, you know, bad news, but this is the reality. I'm just telling you the reality, right? If you buy off the government, you can just fire people whenever you like, right? You fire people if they try to regulate you. If your products hurt people, you buy off the government, these kind of stuff. And this is sort of why you got to call this stuff out. And then also much of this world, say the Elon Musk world, is based on hopes and dreams, or at the moment, much of the world is based on borrowing with, you know, companies like Google trying to do 100-year bonds, which is crazy. So that's what's going on. I want to hear your thoughts on this stuff. Please stay safe out there, and I'll catch you on the next video.